And this is the beginning of the revelation of another level of revelation, where eventually Thomas, after the resurrection, will fall down at Jesus' feet, or you assume he falls down at Jesus' feet, and he says this, "My Lord and my God." And there is this slow dawning on the disciples that they've not just had the Messiah, not just had the Anointed One with them, but they've had God in the flesh. And this is the reason why John writes his first chapter, doesn't he? In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning, and he says, now the Word became flesh and dwelt for a while amongst us. And this whole gospel, this whole account of the life of Jesus that John writes, is an unveiling of that deity. And Jesus puts himself alongside God the Father, trust in God, trust also in me. And he makes himself central again to their spiritual walk. All the way through, he's been saying, I am the bread of life, I am the light of the world, I am the gate for the sheep, I am the good shepherd, I am the resurrection and the life. And these I am sayings have been coming out, and he's about to come out with the sixth I am saying in this passage. And before these 4 chapters are over, he's going to come out with the 7th one about being the true vine. So the 7 I am sayings of Jesus are completed in this next section. And he's been saying, I'm going to be the rock in your life. I'm going to be the reference point. When Moses says to God, as he's about to be sent to the Israelites, who shall I say sent me? And God says, I am who I am. Tell them, I am has sent you. And all the way through this gospel, Jesus has been saying, I am this, I am that, I am the other, I am the bread that came down from heaven. I am the bread that will sustain you. I am the light that will lighten your path for you so you can see. I am the shepherd who will watch over you. I am the gate so that you can go through. I am the resurrection and the life. I'm going to raise you up. Just as the angel Gabriel says to Daniel at the end of the book of Daniel, Daniel, go your way, he says. Go your way, he says. And at the end you will rise to receive your inheritance. Jesus is basically saying, I'm going to be the one that does that. All the resurrection of the dead happens in me. And so you can see these roles of God as the I am have been fulfilled in Jesus. And this time he says, trust in God, trust also in me. I am taking that central place where no human being can fill. Even our most faithful friends cannot say, trust in God, trust also in me. Because all of us are fallible. All of us make mistakes. And you can never trust anyone at the same level that you can trust God. But Jesus puts himself there. And it's one of those moments where you think, wow, isn't that incredible? Just as you trust God, you can trust me. Because I will always be there for you. And so he deals with the very foundation of what it is to live by faith. Because remember, the whole thrust of Christianity is this: the righteous will live by faith. And that is foundational to everything that we do and live as Christians. It's by faith in God and in God alone. And that faith is a trust in him, trusting in his word, trusting in his person, trusting in his character. How many times does David in the Old Testament cry out to God because Saul was about to kill him, or other people are about to kill him? Life has become difficult, and the whole movement of King David in the Old Testament is crying out to God and saying, you've said this, you are this, now help me. And God takes him through all those difficulties, and he learns to trust in his character, in his word. And Jesus is the same pattern. It's his character amongst them, it's his word, it's his deeds, and he says at the end of it all, trust in God, trust also in me. And then he tells them what his business is. And his business is where? I'm going away to be where the Father is. And what's the context? Is it the Father's throne? Is it the Father's country? What is it? What's the actual symbolism that Jesus focuses on?
His mansion.
His house.
His house, yeah.
My Father's house. Isn't that interesting? That we move from trust to the focus of house and household. And this is the growth, isn't it? Because in a little while we're going to end up in a garden where Jesus makes the choice to be obedient. The first human couple were in a garden where they chose to be disobedient. And God said, by the sweat of your brow you will till the world, you will till the earth because of your disobedience. And Jesus, by the sweat of his brow, sweats blood because of the stress of choosing to obey. And God says to Adam, cursed is the ground because of you. And the first place where the blood of Jesus falls is to the ground in the garden. It's amazing, isn't it, how the symbolism is there. And we're going to go to a garden soon. But Jesus has already taken the disciples beyond the garden. And I'm going to take you to my Father's house. Because it's the concept of home. It's the concept of belonging. Because he says, I'm going there not just to my Father's house. Your house is your place of honour. Your house is your place of your name. And those who live in your house share your honour. They share your name. If you're part of the household, you have an identity. And he says, in this household, I'm going to go and prepare a place for you. Because every person needs to know that they have a place in the heart and the household of God. Your household is the place where you share your heart. It's a place where you are just as you are. Where you entertain family. Where you share life together. And the one thing you get to know most of all inside a true household is the other person's heart. I remember hearing a really wonderful set of sermons once about growing up in a household. And when we are children in a house, you learn by rules and regulations. Don't touch this, don't touch that. That's hot. Don't go near the cooker, don't go near the fire. And children learn when they get their fingers burnt. You know, they learn to ouch or etc. But as we grow up in the household, the one thing that delights the parents the most is that rather than living by rules and regulations, you learn to live out of the heart of your parents. And you begin to think to yourself, what would please my parents in this situation? What would please my parents in these circumstances? You know, I remember as a little boy, and my mother reminds me of this every 5 years or so. She said it, didn't she, the other day? Well, as a little boy, I decided that I would want to reward my mother with something creative. And so I got a red biro, and I went upstairs to the duvet cover of my bed, to this sort of like this nice little covering. And I decided to do some very nice red biro doodlings on the actual bed sheet. And I'd do these beautiful patterns. And then I went downstairs to fetch my mother by the hand upstairs to show her these beautiful doodling patterns that I had done on the bed sheet. And because I was a young child, I did not understand how to live out of her heart. It was beyond me that when she saw these doodlings, she didn't naturally go, "Oh, Timothy, these are wonderful, do some more. Fill the whole bed with your doodles." And you know, she just simply very graciously said to me, "That's very nice, but that's not what we do in this household." Because she didn't want me to spread my doodling to my brother's bedroom, to her bedroom, and to the walls and that sort of thing. And there are certain ways of learning, aren't there? You have to learn what's in your parents' hearts. And God wants to take us to the Father's house because it's there where we will learn the Father's heart in the fullness of it. This is why Paul says, doesn't it, that now we see through a glass darkly, but then we shall see face to face. Then we shall know him as we are fully known. When we're in his house, it will be as if God's heart is fully opened, the veil is taken from in front of the Father's face, and we see the Father for who he is. It will be the most astounding and wonderful revelation that is ever to be made to the human race. And it is something that is ahead of us. And therefore, the promise that we have our own place in the Father's heart, in the Father's house, rather, is the deepest promise that Jesus can give. Basically, he's saying you are going to be part of the family, and you need to trust me, because the reason why I'm going away is this one reason: I am preparing a place for you. And when I come back, I'm not coming back with or let me put it this way, the main reason for me coming back is to fetch you. So you can be where I am. That's my main heart. If you were a philosopher and a great theologian, you'd probably say, Jesus is going to return. He's going to return for these reasons. He's going to defeat evil. Once and for all, the devil and all his angels and all that's wrong with this world are going to be defeated. All the invisible things that are behind life, that humanity no longer believes exists, all of the manipulations that happen behind history, all of God's enemies are going to be dealt with, and God's going to deal with all evil amongst humanity. There'll be no more famines, there'll be no more wars. Jesus is going to rescue this, rescue that. He's going to stop this, stop that. He's going to put an end to all pain. He's going to, and you could actually list the huge macro scale things that will happen. When Jesus returns, as I heard one person once say recently, it will be the biggest exchange of power, the biggest movement of power in human history, where humanity and fallen humanity and all these different types of Hitlers, these Mussolinis, these Stalins, these Putins, these Napoleon Bonapartes, all these antichrist figures that rise throughout history and come to power and cause all this torment and pain, all this suffering, they're going to be just swept away. And Jesus is going to be all in all, and you can see the power base shift from fallen humanity to God's Christ. And you could write books and books about the macro scale of what is wonderful that is going to happen. But that's not what Jesus' heart. Jesus' heart is this: I'm going away to prepare a place, and the reason why I'm coming back is I'm coming back for you. I'm coming back for you so that you can be where I am. And it's as if Jesus is saying, yes, the great macro events are going to change. The great power shift is going to change. The current heaven and the current earth will one day pass away, and as the book of Revelation says, there'll be a new heaven and a new earth, and it's going to be all changed. But you know what? The real reason, the real motivation from my heart is this: so you can be with me. So you can have your place in my Father's house. And Jesus is making it clear that the motivation within him is personal. The motivation within him is that, as David says, more are your thoughts towards me than there are grains of sand on the seashore. That's how, and David says, doesn't he, in that psalm, such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It's too wonderful for me. That me as an individual, you have more thoughts towards me than there are grains of sand on the seashore. Therefore, trust in God, trust also in me. Why? Because this is all personal. This is all micro. This is how God sees things. He sees his children. Yes, he sees his church, but he sees every single individual. He knows us. He knows our ways. He knows how we are formed. He has watched over us since we were in the womb. He watches over us every day. All the days ordained for me are written in your book. Your days ordained for me. And in your book are my days that you have for me as an individual, and therefore every day from God's perspective is about how I will walk with him. This is a personal God who says, when I return, you will be in my heart. And your place that I have prepared for you will be in my heart. And when I take my bride to be with me, my bride is made up of individuals, and it will be my joy when I know, as the all-seeing, all-knowing, all-powerful God, when you finally find your place in my Father's heart, it will be a delight to me. Mm-hmm. Because my whole motivation is that I love you as the individual that you are, as the person that I have made you to be, as I have known you, as God says to Jeremiah, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Mm. I had knowledge of the soul, spirit, person that was in amongst those dividing cells. I knew you. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me, David says. And Jesus makes this personal right from the start and says, I am taking you to a place that you can call home, my Father's house.